Shalom and welcome back, everyone. A good Erev Shabbos to you all. This week we conclude the book of Bereshis, of Genesis, with the Parsha of Vayechi. And the Parsha begins that Yaakov, or Jacob, our father, lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe points out from this that these were the 17 best years of his life because of various reasons. He was finally reunited with his family, especially his son Yosef and his sons, after being estranged from them for 20 years. And this was a tremendously wonderful thing. The Rebbe points out also that the best years of his life were these 17 years in Egypt, because he saw the nachas, the tremendous joy of his family living in such a crass, depraved land of Egypt, and in spite of it all, they still kept the Torah and mitzvahs, and this made him so happy that these were the greatest years of his life. In addition, the Torah talks about the idea that Yaakov, before he dies, and he's shortly about to die at the end of the parsha, he says to his son Yosef that he buried his mother, Yosef's mother, Rachel, along the road to Ephrat, which is in Beis Lechem. The Ekbara Sham B'derech Ephrat, he Beis Lechem. That he buried Rachel along the road by Ephrat, on the way to Bethlehem. Why does it mention this? Because apparently, according to the Midrash, Yosef was a little bit perturbed. And he asked his father, "Why did you bury my mother on a roadside grave rather than in the holy cave of the patriarchs, the Maras Machpelah in Hebron? Why did you bury her in such a place?" In fact, I remember myself in 1973 on my first trip to Israel, visiting the grave of Rachel, Kever Rachel, which at that time was simply on the side of the road, on the road to Hebron. You'd go along the road. It's a main road, and she was just buried there. It was a small little building. I remember there was an arch, and there were two soldiers stationed on both sides. And it was a very humble, very plain very plain place. Who wants to be buried on the side of the road? It's not very dignified. It's not very proper. So why did Yaakov bury his beloved wife, the foundation of his home, at such a place? And Yosef was upset about that. Apparently, the Midrash points out, even though it's not stated in the text. And the answer is that Yaakov told him that, Yosef, many years from now, the Jewish people are going to be sent into exile from their land. Their temple will be destroyed. He's referring to the first temple. And they will pass by on their way to Babylon and to Babylonian exile. They will pass along that road. They will go along that road, and they will pass by the grave of Rachel. And in that place, she will come out of the grave, and she will weep, and she will cry for her children, and she will plead to God to save them and to protect them as they are going in Babylonian exile, and who knows what is to await them. The prophet Jeremiah points out, he says, a voice is heard on high, lamentation, bitter weeping. Rachel is crying for her children. Rachel, Bacha al Baneha, she cries for her children. God replied, there is reward for your work, Rachel, and the children shall return eventually to their border. They will come back. Why? Because you prayed for them, because you cried for them, because you gave them strength as they were leaving Israel after the terrible destruction of their holy temple. You, Rachel, will do that. And with this, Yaakov consoled Yosef, and he understood that. And this is really the lesson for all women, for all Jewish women. What is a Jewish woman? She is the Akeres Habayis, the foundation of the home. We know that there are 613 commandments. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. And the fact is that there are many that are time determined. They have to do with a particular time, such as saying the blessing of the Lulav and Esrog at a particular time during the day, and putting on tefillin only during the daytime, etc. There are many, many laws, shofar, many laws that are specifically positive in nature and time determined. These are called in Hebrew mitzvahs aseh Shazman Grama, positive commandments which are time determined. And of this, the halacha says, Nashim Peturos, Nashim, women are exempt from these mitzvahs, even though it's a nice thing to do. Prayer, for example, is one of them. Women are exempt from daily prayer 3 times a day, as men do. They don't put on tefillin, they don't wear a talis, things like that. They don't have to get up in the morning to daven in a minyan and things like that. Why? Because their first responsibility is to their family and their children, their household. They are the foundation of the home. And therefore, as much as a woman would want to participate in these things, if they're able to, that's wonderful. They can do that, of course, but in many of these things. But a woman sacrifices these things for her family and for her home. The nature of a woman is that she sacrifices these things. And therefore, the woman is the foundation of the home. The woman is in charge of the Jewish family. We know that in Orthodox synagogues, they don't tend to be as large and elaborate and fancy as the more liberal synagogues. Rather, they are much more humble and much simpler and smaller in many respects. Why? Why is that? Why don't we build cathedrals like the non-Jews do? Why don't we do that? And the answer is because for us, the mainstay of Jewish life is not the synagogue, it's the home. And it's in the home that we do all of our celebrations. The Shabbos is observed in the home, Friday night, Shabbos day. We light Hanukkah candles. We just had the holiday of Hanukkah. Where? At home. We observe the holidays all at home. We raise our children all at home. The majority of the mitzvahs that we do are based on the home. And there in the home, who's the boss? Who's in charge? The woman. The woman is the mainstay of the home. And in order to do that, sometimes she needs to sacrifice a bit of her own well-being. There are many, many stories and even jokes about women who sacrifice and who suffer. Oh, I'm suffering so much, these types of things. But it's in many respects these things are true. The nature of a woman is if there's only a little bit of food on the table, she will go without in order for her children to have to eat. And that has been throughout history that way. That very often the children ate and the mother didn't eat because there was not enough food for the mother, and she was happy to do it. She was very happy to do it. The woman is the holy center of the Jewish family, and therefore the woman is actually at a higher spiritual level than a man is, we are told. The woman is at a very holy level. A woman does not require a bris milah, a circumcision, because she doesn't need it. For her, she was created kirtzono, as in God's will, by God's will, and that's all. She is at a very, very high spiritual level than a man. So with that in mind, we should go into Shabbos and really inspired by the fact is how awesome it is, the role that the Jewish women have been given to be the mainstay not just of Jewish home, but of Jewish life in general. And we really tip our hat to the women, to the mothers and the daughters, and we wish them health and well-being and nachas from their children and from their husbands. And we should really be meritorious that the women should be in the forefront of all those who are destined to welcome Mashiach. May it happen speedily in our day. Candle lighting in San Diego this week will be at 4:36. As I mentioned, this is the last parsha of Parashas Bereshis. At the end of the reading of the Torah, we will recite Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. We should be strong and we should be strengthened. And God willing, the strength that we derive from Torah should continue with us and give us strength and amunah and faith for the rest of the week and indeed the rest of the year. Shalom, good Shabbos.